Hey guys, Derek here. I've got a very deep voice today. It's like a radio voice. I had something, I don't know what it was. It lasted about a day, but I got this cool voice right now. So, I want to talk about how God sets us free from our stories. There's, you know, we're either all in or we're not. And you can spend years learning knowledge and feeling like you're getting closer to God and all this stuff, but the gospel is so powerful that he tells us to become like children. And I'm convinced that a child could hear the gospel and have a direction in life like, oh, my life is not mine. It's always been his life in me. I'm going to give it all up and live for him and believe. And without all the crap that the child has grown up with, the child could make the transition very quickly into faith and live by faith. And like that's what God wants for all of us. But for all of us who are older, like we've spent years with brainwashing and conditioning, and we're always repenting. Repenting means to change your mind from one value or whatever to another. You're changing the way you think, and I found that like again and again and again and again, thousands of times, like God woos me and he shows me, yes, Derek, this is the way. Yes, trust me. Yes, it's good for you. Yes, you will like it. Yes, my plan is satisfying to you. Yes. And he shows me again and again. And if I am still waking up and I'm still having some kind of stress, if we're having any kind of problems or stress or worry, of course, we've been brainwashed to think that that's normal, that that's normal in the church, that's normal for Christians to have problems. So, what do you think when I say it's normal for Christians to have problems? What do you think if I say it's not normal for Christians to have problems? Like, what does that do in your mind? I would argue that we've been brainwashed into thinking that it's normal. Because if you read the gospel and you think about what is Christian conduct, and you think about how I just got an email and I'm checking my screen. You think about how, what does it talk about? It talks about always giving thanks in all situations and being grateful and all this stuff. And then you wonder, like, okay, is all of this forced? Is it like you feel bad, you feel angry, but you want to please God, so you do these things to prove that you're a Christian? Like, that's what many people do. That's what too many people do. Because we're still brainwashed into thinking that we cannot become like Jesus. We cannot become love. Jesus came as a man, and the reason why he was able to do what he did was because he was love. It's not because he was divine, it's because he was love. Like God is love. We can follow love. We cannot follow divinity, but we can follow love because that's our created value. So if we tell ourselves that we are love and we are meant to be restored back to our image, to because Jesus said that he came to restore what was lost, right? If we believe the gospel, then we are able to follow him as he said. We are able to, as he said, deny ourselves and follow him. We are able to accept the transformation of ourselves, of our beings, into his likeness, which is the whole point. And you can either choose to be a Christian and follow the watered down gospel, the watered down thing that doesn't transform you, which is just not the gospel at all, or you can follow the way. The way is a transformation of our of our entirety back to our created value. It's finding out who we really are in him. It's finding out how is it possible that we are love? When Adam got separated through sin, he became in need of love. Jesus paid the price, restored us back to the Father. Now we are love. So if we are love, and if we can do that, and if we can believe the gospel, then what problems do we have? So if I wake up and I think that I have a mountain to climb today, if I feel like a burden, if I feel like impatient, or any of the negativity that would rule my life, if I didn't know the gospel, like, what does that mean about me? It means that there's still some kind of self-centeredness in me. There's still some kind of not giving my life to God, not surrendering. And I'm aware of, when I say things, I'm aware of the connotations that it brings up because of the way that our culture is. I'm talking to Americans or Yeah, I mainly know about American culture and what it means, and the church has um, and I don't blame the church, by the way. It's just there's a war going on, right? So we have these connotations of giving our life to God, and we think that it means like, oh, you got to wear a tie. It's so funny. It's so opposite. You got to wear a tie. You got to dress up nice. You got to go to church. You got to join the welcoming guy. You got to be the welcomer. You got to like shake people's hands and say and put on a smile. And you're thinking to yourself, oh man, that doesn't feel good, but I want to like give my life to God and I want to surrender. So I'm gonna just give him my time and like go to the church and shake people's hand. And anything that we do with a motive, the thing is like it all depends on our motive. If we do that, and it's so funny, we don't often think like this, but if we do that with a motive of trying to please God, there's self-centeredness in trying to please God. The only reason you would try to please God, I mean, he's already given his son. He's already accepted us into the beloved. So what are we trying to please God for? It can be nothing other than we're trying to get something from him. And we got to talk about this stuff because there's too many Christians doing that. And it's really sad. And I've seen the fruit, the bad fruit that comes from that. I've seen so many things. Like I've seen people, and this happened to me too, who think and they've got this idea of like what God's will is, and it's still based on self-centeredness. It's still like, okay, there's a woman, for example, when she wakes up in the morning, her mountain is she's trying to climb a mountain to please God in order to reach this relationship with this man that she thinks she's meant to be with because she's convinced that it's God's will, because she's been brainwashed by the church to think about God's will as something that we don't know already. She thinks of it as that, right? She thinks like, oh, it's God's will for me to be with this guy, and so I just got to be a good Christian because deep down she's a Christian for her own sake. And again, we cannot be a Christian for what we can get from God. Like that's a recipe for disaster. So this woman, and this happens to a lot of people, this woman will wait for years and the guy will be pushing her away all the time, being like, I'm not the one for you, I'm not into you. And she's determined through faith. She's like, it's not really faith, it's fear, but it's like she's going to believe that he's the one, and it's like God, it's God's will, and blah blah blah. And she'll spend years doing this, and that's her mountain. She's trying to get that thing that she thinks she needs to be fulfilled. All the while, God is telling her, like, your fulfillment is in me. All that you need is in me. Everything around us, the blessings, the relationships, the money, the whatever, it's temporal, and it's not the fulfillment that we need. And it's basically idolatry. Like, it's so deceptive, but this woman can be living in idolatry, totally unaware, because the church keeps encouraging her. And I'm saying this because this resonates with me, because this happened to me when I was young. And I was living in idolatry, but I didn't know it. But I was following, hey, I checked the marks. I prayed for a long time. I read the Bible. I went to church. No pastor would tell me what the gospel is. Like, the gospel is about surrender. The gospel is about giving your life back to the Creator, because it was never ours to begin with. It's about His life in us. And it's about freedom, too. And nobody told me that it's about freedom. Nobody told me that it's about letting go of your idols, letting go of the things that determine your disposition, letting go of that, because we're living like up and down. Like, look what it does to us. Look at all the sicknesses and diseases that come from living that way. So I don't care what it is, like whoever you are and whatever you're waking up to, whatever problem you think that you wake up to, it doesn't matter. Like, it's all rooted in self-centeredness. You got to look at the root. Are you living for yourself? What is your motive in life? Are you waking up for yourself, for getting something that you think that you lack? What if you already have it? What if God is saying, hey, this is not you at all? Like, believe the gospel. I know who you are. You're created to be love. You're created to be in my image. And if you are love, you have everything already, and you have love to give. And that's the only way that we can shine as a Christian, is if we are fulfilled in love already and we believe it. And it just goes back to faith, to a matter of believing or not. And a lot of people like ask me, well, how do you do this? Like, how do you change? You cannot change yourself. I was in this group, like this they call it a study group or whatever, and they're analyzing all the ways in which you you need to surrender, and all the ways in which blah blah blah. Like, yes, it is about surrender, but you don't need to study you don't need to get into psychology. It's easy. It's supposed to be easy, but the paradox is that it's so easy. It's all about believing that it's easy, and I'm fine with that, because I don't want to spend a master's degree, PhD in surrender and in letting go in order to finally figure out psychologically how to let go, because all of that effort is based in self-centeredness, because God is here, God is now, God is in you, God is love. He is love in you. I'm speaking in tongues now, okay? I wish I could just do a video of speaking in tongues. So, I hope this was valuable to somebody. And the only way, again, is your communion and intimacy with God. He's the only one who can change your heart. You know, Jesus was talking about the rich man, and how it's nearly impossible for a rich man to go to heaven. And they all like asked him, how does that make sense, you know? And he said that with God all things are possible. The rich man has seemingly everything, and he's well off. He doesn't have to worry, and he can do anything he wants, right? And so how does that man learn to give his life back to God? Why would he want to surrender? And because on the surface, in the lie, he has everything. That's the lie. But in the end, he has nothing. Like Jesus said that what benefit is it of a man to gain the whole world but forfeit his soul, right? But because of our being taught in the wrong home, because we've been taught by the world, we are programmed to think a certain way, right? By the world, right? So we're just thinking that we have it all according to the world. We do, right? So how do you surrender? And you know, okay, so only God can do that. Only the intimacy with God can change us. And then when Jesus said that, when there's a rich man that came to Jesus, and that's the same man. Okay, so when he came to Jesus and Jesus said, sell everything you have and then follow me, and the man was sad, right? I really don't think that God is saying, hey, if you're rich, sell all your stuff and give to the poor. Like, he's not saying that. He's saying this particular man loved his stuff more. That's why he went away sad, right? And he knew that in his heart. And God pointed that out. Jesus pointed that out. Like, this is the way for you to get to my heart. Like, this is the way for you to follow me. So what does that mean for you? Like, this rich man, he had all these stuff. And the only way that he could follow Jesus was to get rid of it, right? So what is the stuff for you and me? What is the stuff that makes us, when we wake up in the morning, have this trouble, this mountain to climb? What do we need to give up? What do we need to surrender? Again, we don't need to get psychological about it. We just need to be willing in the heart and ask God, like, what do I need to surrender? And be willing to embrace the gospel. Be willing to become what he paid for. Okay, I've said enough. Thank you, guys. Long time no see. Is anyone out there? Is anyone listening? I hope you're listening. Subscribe. I never say that. Subscribe and like. Bye.